Even in her youth, Leavitt stood way above the crowd, and now as a 25-year-old, she has thoroughly established herself as a fierce defender of government restraint and traditional values. She has quickly garnered esteem as a no-nonsense politician. While her critics may insist that her sharp tongue and unapologetic self have gone too far, to her bare supporters, she is without a doubt a political messiah. And if this was not controversial enough, it seems like Leavitt is yet to face the major storm of her life. On a Tuesday morning, the sun was shining dazzlingly bright in New York City. Leavitt was supposed to make guest appearances on The Daily Pulse, which is famous for its more liberal approach. The show's host, Marcus Langley, is no stranger to seasoned conservatives and has made a name for himself through his viciously sarcastic persona. He has established his career by skillfully charming his guests, only to shred them to pieces on stage. It was bound to be fun for him to engage in verbal battles with someone as blunt as Leavitt. The energy in the green room was lively as Karoline calmly sat down and prepared her talking points. While her team alerted her to Marcus's ways of searching for information, it did not concern her. She had done many difficult interviews in the past and worked best when the stakes were high. As she tasted her coffee, she could catch part of the production team's dialogue. "He is going to make a meat pie out of her," an assistant said unconsciously, making the remark a little too close to Karoline. She grinned. "We'll see about that." Chapter 2. The interview, everything was ready to go. Everything from the set to the smooth new avatar of the Daily Pulse was ready to go, because the cameras switched on. At the helm of his desk sat the one and only Marcus Langley, his smile already gracing his face. He set his eye line down to the cue cards in front of him. The person he was talking with today was a real blast. "Ladies and gentlemen, make some noise for Karoline Leavitt." Without hesitation, Marcus's first line was full-throttle, new fake passion, making his voice laced in excitement. Her heels let out sharp clacks against the stage as she stepped forward in her fitted clothes. Instead of claps, she got warmed murmurs. Standing at the intersection of the floor, she greeted the spectators with a charming smile and shook Marcus' hand right before elegantly crossing her legs after taking a seat. Marcus relaxed in his chair and said, "So, Karoline, it appears that you have a reputation that has been building, and lo and behold, some people regard you as an upcoming leader in the conservative movement. As for other people, let's just say that they do not have such positive things to say about you. What do you make of your critics?" "In this field of work, Serge, having skin like a rhino is crucial to success," Karoline said while grinning. "Sure, some people may not respect my opinions, but I am certainly owed respect. Alas, people seem to be incapable of doing so." "Sure, Michael, when a makes-out moral graph based on mistreatment of liberal elites and woke culture, that certainly is rich." "Let's be real. There is some level of hypocrisy to that," Marcus laughed. However, her smile remained unmoved, even though her eyes had slightly narrowed. "Hypothetically makes out for quite a contradicting statement," she said. "Just like yourself, I have my fair share of controversies, so if I wish to make for myself, then I could easily do so and get my headline while attacking people. My concern lies elsewhere, and that concern is the pretending of difference along ideologies." Karoline's statement received a mix of cheers and boos from the audience. "Interesting," Marcus said, one eyebrow over the other as he focused on her puzzled expression. "All right, on the other hand, I am intrigued to understand the ideas you possess on, for instance, climate change legislation. Correct me if I am wrong, believing that you are a vocal opponent and even classify it as alarmist nonsense, and I am sure that you have good reasons to believe that. Would like to hear your thought on it, or do you feel like it would not be considered saying it to appeal to your base? While I have faith in science, Marcus, I also put stock in logic. The left's policies are extremely delusional, not only impractical. They damage working-class families, undermine progress, and completely ignore the real issues. That is not some radical scare tactic. That is a fact." Marcus chuckled. "The truth, is it? That's funny because I know that most scientists would disagree with you. I suppose you know more than the experts, right?" Karoline advanced without taking any breaks. "I don't claim I know more than anyone, Marcus, and please notice I said claiming. However, blindly following the so-called experts without questioning their motives or their methods is something that gives me a reason to not trust them. That's not science. That's dogma. A low murmur of surprise came from the audience. Marcus's grin faded for a fraction of a second, only to come back once again. Let's switch gears. You have a reputation of not giving in when it comes to abortion rights, even in cases where rape and incest is involved. How do you justify that stance? Karoline took a deep breath. She could tell that this was a sensitive issue, and Marcus was trying to provoke her, but she wasn't going to give up. I think every single life is valuable, Marcus, and in that instance, yes. I do believe it is our sole purpose to defend those who are vulnerable amongst us and children who have not yet been born. Unfortunately, you are correct. It is a hard position to accept, but you will have to take it one way or another. Courade widened eyes and put a hand to her mouth. Do people ever think about what it would feel like for a 12-year-old girl to be forced a puppy for her rapist? You mean to tell me that is completely acceptable to you? Karoline clenched her jaw but remained poised and tranquil. Rape is distasteful, and I most certainly do not condone it, Marcus. I don't think any single person does, but two wrongs don't right a single one. You simply can't erase the trauma of a violation through something as heinous as murder. It merely compounds it. The public seemed to be astounded. They sat there in shocked silence, fully aware of the weight of what had just been said. He leaned back, taking pleasure in the moment. A condescending smirk tugged on his lips. That surely is a different way to look at things. Let's check in with our audience, shall we? He switched his focus back to the camera. We will return shortly after the break. Stay tuned. The backlash, within milliseconds of the camera stopping, Karoline's notifications flooded her phone, relentlessly buzzed minute after minute. Social media was on fire, reposting snippets from the interview, and a bunch of reactions started surfacing. Karoline Leavitt destroys Marcus Langley. One headline read, Leavitt's savage response leaves liberal host speechless, another proclaimed. Although not all the eyes were positive, supporters praised her for being brave and taking a firm decision, while critics ridiculed her for being completely distanced from reality. Most of the ire was directed to her for the vantage point of spotting the abortion, and the virulent video of her debate with Marcus went massively viral, publicized aggression spanning the political divide. In the green room, Karoline's team was over the moon. You sent them packing, her campaign manager Sarah said. Oh my God, did Marcus just get rocked? Karoline smiled, but her head was spinning. This wasn't even the apex. The media whirlwind was about to erupt, and she had to be prepared for it. Chapter 4. The Aftermath. The next few days were a total mess. Karoline was besieged with interviews, speaking opportunities, and media appearances. Her followers on social media boomed exponentially, and the funding for her campaign was overwhelming. However, as visibility increased, so did the scrutiny. Marcus Langley, on the flip side of the coin, was in a fit. He had anticipated this would be an easy win, but he did not expect Karoline's maneuvers. To restore his reputation, he unleashed on Karoline throughout an entire segment of his show. Karoline Leavitt is a dangerous extremist. My views and her as a person stem different. Her beliefs put her in extremes and are capable of causing harm and pain in ways of rhetoric. People like her should not have a chance to steer the fate of this nation. We have to, actively, with fortitude, defeat their visions. My aunt insists that, he said while glaring in disdain. As anticipated, the Karoline video did not serve my cause. Instead, it shattered my reputation. The attempt to discredit my opponent came off as unprofessional and petty, which ultimately served my enemy's purpose. Leavitt claiming that I have aunt issues definitely made me look strange. Point is, I was using Leavitt to counter my opponents, but it backfired. I lost faith in her logic. Leavitt used a different approach for my potential voters, and it completely worked. Suddenly, every single person came out to ridicule me and enjoy my fall from grace. To my shock, everyone is instead laughing at me. The blame falls entirely within my logic, which, in case I had faith in, is now shattered. The shattered retinas of my opposition, which folks see, prove me right. With the passage of weeks, Karoline's star kept shining brighter. Using the traction she got from the interview, she set out on a national book tour, addressing large crowds and securing prominent endorsements from multiple conservative influencers. She was also met with fierce opposition from the other side, with angry demonstrators attending her events and detractors savagely critiquing her on social media platforms. Karoline remained resolute through the obstacles. Although she clearly understood how tough the journey ahead was, she decided to stand up for her beliefs no matter what. And looking at the thousands of supporters rallying behind her, she felt that she was indeed bringing a change. Chapter 6. The Changer. Karoline Leavitt's name would be associated with one of the most significant developments in political history. Leavitt is now recognized as one of the most powerful people of her generation, a conservative values icon, and a bulwark for the liberal system. And all of this began with her interview on the Daily Pulse. For Marcus Langley, his attempt at defeating Karoline ultimately marked the end of his career, where everything turned for the worse. In contrast, remembered why she joined the political realm to begin with. To fight for her beliefs always stood as the single most crucial reason for why she asked numbness politics. Epilogue. Karoline stared at the photographs and trinkets decorating her office wall around her desk, which proudly showcased her career's milestones. Her eyes eventually settled on the framed picture of her and Marcus Langley taken during an interview on the Daily Pulse. She recalled his expression when she delivered the final rebuttal, which left a smile plastered across her face. "Respect isn't given, Marcus," she declared. "It's earned. And if you want mine, you're going to have to do a lot better than cheap shots and gotcha questions." Hearing her final statement, the audience applauded, catching Marcus Langley speechless. She held on to this moment with all her might since to her, it remained unforgettable. Sighing, Karoline leaned back in her chair as she returned the photo to the desk. She felt a sense of readiness despite knowing that the journey ahead was still quite long. There was no denying that what she did to Marcus Langley was extraordinary, and what happened next should not even matter. What else could pose a challenge to her?